Oh shit, this story is insane. I forgot about this story. Thank you, chatter, for reminding me. Mehmet Oz was investigated and fined for his sick and abusive experiments on puppies. Among his violations, he pumped injections into puppies' hearts without sedation. People noted that the puppies' screams could be heard through closed doors, and he left them dead in a plastic garbage bag. He's a literal puppy murderer. For those who believe that this is too crazy to be true, check out the source. Head on down to the Animal Cruelty and Welfare Violations tab on Columbia University. Jesus Christ. Let Al Franken explain.
The legitimacy of the court was undermined. When they wouldn't take up Merrick Garland. And you'll remember that McConnell said it was because it was during an election year. And you remember Lindsey Graham pledging that if a vacancy came open during an election year in 20, that he wouldn't vote for, they wouldn't take up a nominee. They've stolen 2 seats. The one that Merrick Garland wasn't given a hearing for, and the one that Coney Barrett was, where she was seated a week before the election. That destroyed the legitimacy of the court.
Taffy next to the prime.
Alice, what do you think? Did Chief Justice Roberts sort of, I mean, he sort of ignored some of what Al is talking about there, and that there is a tremendous amount of controversy as to how this court got tilted in the direction of the far right.
Just to throw a little accuracy in some of what Al said there. Look, the Merrick Garland was held up because we had a divided government. We had a Democrat in the White House, and we had Republicans in control of.
That's not what was said. That's not what McConnell said.
But that's the way historically this has been. When you're in.
Absolutely not true. Democratic sets have appointed all sorts of Republican judges, and even vice versa. For example, in 1991. They replaced the first sitting black Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall, with another unqualified sexual harassing freak and conservative extremist who was massively unqualified, Clarence Thomas. Democrats voted him in. The Democrats were in control of the Senate, and they voted him the fuck in. Clarence Thomas would not be on the Supreme Court but for Democrats like Joe Biden facilitating his hearing. Okay. I don't think Spatty Daddy needs a timeout for 30 minutes. That seems a little bit excessive. Last time this happened before Obama was in the 80s, Dems blocked a judge who wanted to undo the Civil Rights Act. That would be Bork. And he was voted down by Republicans!
Close to an election year, and you have divided government.
That's not the way it's been historically done.
Yes, and when you have divided government, there typically is inclination to.
Tell me when this happened before.
When you
Tell me
this
when it
close
happened
to
before.
When you're, well, Merrick Garland is certainly one. When there's a divided government,
No, before
they're not moving
Merrick
Garland. Here's a history of Supreme Court vacancies in presidential years, huh? Aside from 1900, aside from the Garrett nomination mentioned above, only twice has a sitting president been able to nominate and confirm a Supreme Court justice during an election year. Republican President William Taft nominated. Democratic President Woodrow Wilson, Herbert Hoover, and Roosevelt. And guess what? Republican President Ronald Reagan nominated Justice Anthony Kennedy to succeed Justice Lewis Powell, retired on June 26, 1987. Democratic-controlled Senate confirmed Justice Kennedy by a vote of 97-0. Divided government, and that's just election year. Divided government happens all the time.
They're not moving forward.
Tell me when this happened before.
Al, I'm telling you, this is what the Mitch McConnell
Tell me when it
said.
happened before.
I can't.
You said this is what happened historically. Tell me when it happened before.
Look, this is the way that the Republicans
went.
This is the first time I've actually seen somebody roast a Republican and call them out for their lies, and she's been exposed. Like, she can't name anything because it's totally incoherent. This is the first time in history.
like, I can't give you an exact example of when this happened in the past.
You know
but
why
I
you
can
can't?
tell you,
Because it hadn't happened before.
look, the basis for not appointing him was because of that specific reason. But moving forward,
No, it wasn't. And McConnell explicitly said that it was the, quote, Biden rule. And he quoted a little piece of a speech that Biden had given in June of '80. And Biden said they wouldn't take up if they weren't consulted. And this was about someone resigning in June after a term of the court, which is very different than someone dying. Scalia died in February. And you saw, you guys, if you can find the tape, you can find Lindsey Graham saying, keep the tape. We will not take up a judge if someone dies, a nominee, if someone dies in an election year in the next election. This is total hypocrisy. And you actually, I'm surprised that you're claiming this and you can't come up with an example because there is none.
I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me and you'd be absolutely right. If an opening comes in the last year of President Trump's term and the primary process is started, we'll wait till the next election. And I've got a pretty good chance being the judiciary.
You're on the record.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold the tape.
Light of these two events, I will support President Donald Trump in any effort to move forward regarding the recent vacancy created by the passing of Justice Ginsburg. But who's? Why are you playing curb music? We got curbed. He didn't get curbed. Like, what do you mean? And then he won re-election with just as much votes as he did last time. Like, why are you playing curb music? We're the ones who got owned. He lied to everybody's face and paid no penalty for it. I can't imagine I mean, can you honestly show me a case of more blatant lying than that? Serious question.
to get back to the point of the conversation here.
No,
Kamala Harris.
this is the point.
Now look, I'm not good at predicting the future, but I can just about promise you that that's the last time Alice Stewart shows up on air with Al Franken. Now right off the bat, here's the line that very clearly didn't rub Al the right way. After he correctly explains the abject partisan hackery that led to 2 stolen Supreme Court seats for Republicans, Alice Stewart says to throw a little accuracy in some of what Al said there. First of all, every word of what Al said was correct, so I can imagine why being condescended to about having supposedly been inaccurate probably didn't sit too well for him. But what's worse is that she goes on to lie.
This guy's a mega omega lib, but whatever, it's fine. It's relevant for what we're talking about right now.
After patronizing Al and calling his statement
I'll let the libs live up. They got 1 win on cable TV, all right? Let them live.
Accurate, she's the one who offers inaccuracies. She claims that it's precedent for a Senate
in
a divided government not to give a hearing to the opposing party's president's nominee for the Supreme Court. But that's not
Can't we just watch the whole segment? Do you have a link to it? I mean,
president, because guess what? That hasn't happened before.
I'm working with what
In
I
fact,
got here,
going back
okay?
to the late 1800s until the 1950s, all 5 election year vacancies on the court occurred during a unified government, meaning there was no test of whether a divided government would confirm those nominees. And then in 1988, Reagan nominated controversial candidate Robert Bork to the Supreme Court, whose confirmation was blocked by members of both parties in a Democratic-led Senate. But then Reagan nominated Anthony Kennedy, and the Democratic-led Senate confirmed him, wait for it, 97-0, meaning when Alice Stewart says that it's precedent for the party out of power to prevent a president's nominees from being confirmed, she is lying. There is quite literally no precedent for what she's saying because it hadn't happened until Mitch McConnell decided to do it apropos of nothing, knowing full well that the party's mouthpieces, like Alice Stewart, would then come on TV and opine on how, yes, well, you see, there is historical
They changed 0 votes with this clip. That's true, but this is actually really important because of how politics actually operates. I have changed my mind on some things. I don't think persuasion of the other side or moderate voters or whatever is actually important. And as important as, I mean, it's important, but it's not as important as what? Convincing the base to make demands. Why do you think we got student loan debt relief? Because we convinced a bunch of Republicans? No, the base demanded it. So for example, why do I think this matters? If Democratic base is demanding they do something about the Supreme Court, that's what matters. And so this clip and Al Franken going on CNN, that's what we need to convince the Democratic base to make demands. Instead of going, yes, sir, we have to cuck ourselves for the moderate. They're making demands. And this is what the persuasion is for. It's not about changing votes from Republican to Democrat. It's about changing what Democrats have to do when they win.
Precedent for this, and U.S. history is awash with examples of this occurring, except for the fact that there are 0 examples of this occurring, and yet one more example of Republicans treating their base like they're idiots. Honestly, the best part is Alice saying that she can't give an exact example of her lie, which is probably due to the fact that it doesn't exist. I, too, have found that it's often difficult to conjure up specific examples of things that didn't occur. Of course, that doesn't stop her from tripling and quadrupling down, which, I'm going to be honest, is worth it just to put on full display the shamelessness with which these people will lie to our faces. In fact, just to
Here's the full segment. Okay, let's watch this.
Vice President
Vacancy came
Republicans in control.
in June of '80, and you keep the tape. We will not.
To get back to the point of the conversation here.
No,
Kamala Harris.
this is the point.
We're talking about Kamala Harris and her calling the current
Taiwan Tempest,
Supreme
actually, it's here
Court
too.
justices activist justices because she doesn't like the outcome of their ruling. And when they made their decision on Roe v. Wade,
That's literally what Republicans have done for generations. But not only that, when you overturn precedent of 50 or 60 years, or you throw out the acts of Congress with no constitutional precedent for it, you are doing activism. Give me a fucking break.
they looked at the precedent and they looked at Roe v. Wade and said it was egregiously wrong from the start. And they looked at the constitutional aspect of this and saw that there was no constitutionally protected right for an abortion listed in the Constitution.
No constitutionally protected right for privacy. Does that sound good to you, chat? No constitutional right to privacy? Fucking madness.
That's why they took it out. And the most important thing here is that this took an important issue like abortion out of the hands of 9 unelected justices.
Alice Stewart. Her
and
name's
put it
on the
back
screen,
in the hands
chat.
of elected officials at the state
paled
level,
out.
which
Thanks
is
for the prime.
exactly where it should be. And the only reason that Kamala Harris says they're activists is because she doesn't like the outcome of their ruling.
Alice, speaking of that, in Michigan, voters will decide on a ballot initiative that would enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution. Al, I have to wonder, I mean, anti-abortion activists have been compared to the dog that caught the car with the Dobbs decision, and you have to wonder whether the dog is going to get run over now, because it looks to be the case in state after state. Voters are going to be showing up at the polls in droves to make their voices heard on this.
You remember when Kavanaugh said this wasn't just precedent, Roe v. Wade, but Casey was precedent upon precedent?
Called it a super precedent.
This is why these guys are considered not legitimate, because they lied in their confirmation hearings. Yeah, they caught the car. You saw in Kansas, it was what, 59 or 40, no, 59-41 in Kansas. This is a pretty conservative state.
The courts in general should follow their past precedents.
It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court.
It has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years.
Well, when you say liberal, you mean Joe Manchin, Kirsten
And it's the principle
Sinema.
that courts in general should follow their past precedents. And it's important for a variety of reasons. It's important because it limits the power of the judiciary. It's important because it protects reliance interests, and it's important because it reflects the view that courts should respect the judgments and the wisdom that are embodied in prior judicial decisions.
Senator, again, I would tell you that Roe versus Wade, decided in 1973, is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. It has been reaffirmed The reliance interest considerations are important there, and all of the other factors that go into analyzing precedent have to be considered. It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. It was reaffirmed in Casey in 1992 and in several other cases.
And one of the important things to keep in mind about Roe v. Wade is that it has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years, as you know. And most prominently, most importantly, reaffirmed in Planned Parenthood versus Casey in 1992.
Do you agree with Justice Scalia's view that Roe was wrongly decided?
Senator, I completely understand why you are asking the question, but again, I can't pre-commit or say, yes, I'm going in with some agenda, because I'm not. I don't have any agenda. I have no agenda to try to overrule Casey. I have an agenda to stick to the rule of law and decide cases as they come.
And you saw, because they lied in their confirmation hearings. Yeah, they caught the car. You saw in Kansas, it was what, 59 or 40, no, 59, 41 in Kansas. This is a pretty conservative state. And you saw what happened in Michigan is a perfect example of how the Republican Party has ceased to participate in good faith in our democracy. This was their canvassing board that is a 2-2 board, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. They had 750,000 signatures from people saying, we want this on the ballot. We want to be able to vote on this. These 2 commissioners said, oh no, they found some absurd little like spacing in the, and so they rejected this. Well, the Supreme Court then decided 5-2, and it's a heavily Republican Supreme Court, that what they were doing was absurd, what they were doing. So now the people of Michigan are going to decide. And look, this is something that a woman should decide, that a woman with her doctor should decide. This isn't something that should be decided by other people.
What do you think, Alice?
I think this should be decided not by the Supreme Court, but it should be decided at the state level. And look,
so in other words, she thinks that a state should be able to decide what a woman does with her body. Here's what I want, chat. You know what I want? You know what I want more than anything? That conservatives have to live according to the standards that they put out. That's what I want to see. I want to see every single abortion by a Republican woman who voted for these scumbags to become a criminal. I want to see them prosecuting those people. I want to see a Republican representative who paid for an abortion to get fucking sued in Texas. I want to see those people prosecuted. And when I see that, I'll still say that no one else should be.
Are you worried about the political consequences of this?
We've already seen
Republicans may pay a price.
We have seen consequences for this. Kansas is a perfect example. Al, you're right. When abortion is on the ballot, up or down, there's a lot of support across the board for abortion protection. So when it gets down to it, and these are ballot initiatives, and we're going to see more and more of them, more people do side for abortion protections. The most important thing, though...
See, the thing that's happening in our country is that what you just saw from Al Franken was basic competence. You're probably reeling right now because Al Franken just said basic competence. He leaked up what happened in history a couple of years ago with the present, and he presented it in a relatively straightforward and concise manner while on the TV. And he didn't get shouted down and he didn't get interrupted. This is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. That's why we're all so like, wow, Al Franken, wow, yay, Al Franken, go, way to go. All he did is say basic facts.
Is pro-life advocates like myself, I think there needs to be exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
Why? What's the privileged philosophical or theological distinction between the rape fetus and another fetus? There is none. There is none. If life happened, you hack. You disgusting misogynist freak.
And any state that does not have those exceptions is doing a tremendous disservice to the pro-life issue. So we need to make sure and keep those exceptions in place.
And by the way, those exceptions are not exceptions. If you ban abortion except for blah, you've banned it. What doctor's going to do the abortion and then get arrested and then be investigated? What hospital wants to pay the liability for that? They're going to say no. What does life of the mother mean? What, some doctor's gonna risk prison time because of your cockamamie interpretation of what life means? You fucking scum. Fuck you. Eat shit.
But look, I support life.
How about doing a disservice to the women?
Look, again, I think a service to the sanctity of life is what I stand for, and I think we need to protect life.
That's your religious belief. If you don't want to have If you don't want to have an abortion, don't have one.
But the point is, there are going to be
he
at
has
the state
fucking
level,
flustered her. She's destroyed.
a lot of times where the people that are supportive of the pro-life issue and supportive of overturning Roe v. Wade, it's not going to be a great outcome for us. But the most important thing is that the pro-life movement and social evangelicals fought to overturn Roe v. Wade to put this back in the hands of the people, and that's exactly what's happening.
It's not a great outcome for a 10-year-old
rape victim
who's
in Ohio.
raped and has to go to another state. And these justices, I asked you right at the beginning of this to come up with an example. You still haven't. This is an illegitimate court.
Holy shit, I can't believe it. We saw an actual competent argument in favor of a center-left position. I'm in shambles. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.